Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
Today, we are doing something that I have to admit I have been vibrating with excitement about all week. Usually we're tackling these massive, sprawling topics or maybe a specific modern dilemma, but today's
different.
Today, we are stepping into a very small, very dimly lit room. We are going back to the year 524 AD, into a stone-walled cell in Pavia, Italy, to sit next to a man who is waiting to be bludgeoned to death.
It is such a dark setting for a book that is ultimately about light.
Exactly. We're looking at a text that, for about 1,000 years, was pretty much the second most important book in the Western world, right after the Bible.
It's hard to even imagine that level of influence today.
I mean, this was the book that Queen Elizabeth I translated herself. Chaucer translated it. It was the comfort of statesmen, the puzzle of theologians, and really the manual for anyone who had lost everything. We are talking about the Consolation of Philosophy.
Yeah, it's impossible to overstate its influence. It is the bridge between the classical world of Greece and Rome and the medieval world that followed. It's the vessel that carried the logic of Plato and Aristotle right through the Dark Ages.
The author is Anicius Manlius Severinus Boethius. Even the name sounds heavy, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like it carries the weight of marble columns in Roman law.
It certainly does. And Boethius was, in so many ways, you could call him the last of the Romans. He lived right at that hinge of history where the classical Roman Empire had, technically fallen in the West, and the barbarian kingdoms were rising up. He was a man straddling two worlds.
Absolutely. And the setup for this book is just, it's cinematic.
Oh, completely. If you pitched this as a movie script, Hollywood would buy it in a second. You have this guy, Boethius, who had absolutely everything, and I mean everything.
We're talking wealth, power, a brilliant intellect, a happy family.
He was the smartest guy in the room and the most powerful guy in the Senate. And then, snap, just like that, overnight, he is in a dungeon, stripped of his honors, his property is confiscated, his friends are too scared to even look him in the eye, and he knows the executioner is coming.
It is the ultimate fall from grace. A total catastrophic reversal of fortune.
And yet in that absolute darkness, he writes a book. But he doesn't write a legal defense. He doesn't write a tell-all memoir trashing his enemies.
No.
He writes a book about how to be happy.
Which seems like the greatest paradox of all given his situation. But that is the core of the work, isn't it?
It is. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to explore how this classic work of theology deconstructs the nature of fortune, why getting what you want might actually be the worst thing for you. We're going to define happiness, true happiness, not the Instagram version.
And finally, we're going to tackle the heavyweight champion of theological problems. How on earth divine foreknowledge is compatible with human free will?
It's a huge one.
It's a theological detective story. And just to be clear for everyone listening, our discussion today is drawn entirely from the text of the Consolation of Philosophy itself. We're sticking to what Boethius wrote in that cell.
And the structure is so unique, right? It's not just him monologuing.
No, not at all. It's a dialogue. It includes these dense prose arguments, but also these beautiful verse interludes, the songs. But the dialogue is between the prisoner Boethius himself and this very strange, very powerful visitor, the personification of philosophy.
Lady Philosophy.
Lady Philosophy, yes.
So let's unpack this. Let's go to the cell, segment 1, the prisoner and the physician.
To really feel the weight of this book, you have to understand the height from which Boethius fell. This isn't just, a guy losing a middle management job.
No, this is the Elon Musk or the prime minister of his day losing everything overnight.
Exactly. Paint the picture for us. Who was he before the chains?
Well, he was a blue blood from the Anici family, which could trace its lineage way back to the height of the Republic. In the year 510 AD, he was sole consul.
And just to put that in context, for anyone who isn't up on 6th century politics, being consul was the absolute peak of the pyramid. The year was named after you. It was the highest honor a Roman could achieve.
It's the title on the business card that stops the room.
It really is. And he wasn't just a figurehead. He was the master of offices. You can think of him as the chief of staff, secretary of state, and head of the civil service all rolled into one. He was running the government.
But the text highlights one specific moment, the year 522 AD, as the absolute summit of his happiness.
This is the ultimate proud dad moment mentioned in the text.
It's a moment that would make any parent just whoop with joy. His two sons, both of them, or made joint consuls.
It's an unbelievable honor.
Boethius describes the scene so vividly. He is riding in the procession in a chariot right between his two boys. The Senate is cheering. The people are throwing flowers. He gets to the Senate house and gives the panegyric, the big public speech in honor of the king. He is without question the golden boy of the Western world.
And the king here is Theodoric. This is really important context, right? Because Theodoric isn't Roman.
Huge distinction. Theodoric is an Ostrogoth. He's a barbarian king ruling over Romans. So there's this constant underlying tension.
Right. You've got Boethius, who represents the old Roman aristocracy. He's refined, intellectual, Catholic. And then you have Theodoric, who is Arian, Gothic, a military man. They need each other, but there's a fundamental lack of trust there.
So when the wheel turns, it turns violently. Boethius goes from the guy riding between his consul sons to a traitor in chains. What happened? How did it fall apart so fast?
It's a purge, plain and simple. Boethius is accused of treason, and the charge is incredibly vague, but it's deadly. He is accused of trying to save the Senate.
Which to a modern ear sounds like he's a hero. I saved the Senate. Why is that a death sentence?
Because to a paranoid Gothic king, saving the Senate sounds an awful lot like restoring the Republic and overthrowing me, the king. Specifically, Boethius stepped in to stop an informer from presenting evidence against other senators. He tried to block a purge. And Theodoric saw that as obstruction of justice and therefore treason.
And the text mentions forged letters. That feels like a classic setup.
It's a classic frame job. The accusers claimed he produced forged letters to the emperor in the East in Constantinople, hoping for Roman freedom. But then, to make sure the mud really stuck, they added a charge of sacrilege.
Sacrilege. That seems completely out of left field for a statesman. What was the basis for that?
Well, Boethius was a genius. He wrote about astronomy, music, mathematics, theology. His accusers basically twisted that. They said, he knows too much. He must be using this forbidden knowledge, this philosophy, for magical, ambitious purposes.
Wow. So they turned his intellect into a weapon against him.
They took his greatest strength, his mind, and used it to condemn him.
Precisely. And so we find him in Pavia, 500 miles from home, unheard, undefended, and condemned to death. And when the book opens, he is not taking it well.
No, he's definitely not in a stoic frame of mind at this point. He's wallowing.
He is. He's writing poetry, but it's sad, self-pitying poetry. The text says he is attended by the muses of poesy.
The drama queens.
Essentially, yes. These are the muses of tragedy. They are feeding his grief. He's crying. He's complaining about his white hair and his loose skin, just feeling sorry for himself. He's absolutely indulging in his misery.
And then the room changes. This is one of the most famous entrances in all of literature. Enter Lady Philosophy.
The description here is so specific and symbolic. First, her eyes. They are described as burning and keen, beyond the usual power of men. She sees things we miss.
But her stature is what's really trippy.
She's a shapeshifter.
In a way, yes. The text says at one moment she seems of average human height, but the next moment, her forehead strikes the sky. And if she lifts her head higher, she pierces the heavens and goes completely beyond human sight.
That has to be a metaphor for what philosophy is.
It is. It symbolizes the range of philosophy. It deals with the practical, human-level ethics, politics, how to live your life. But it also ascends to the divine, the metaphysical, the theological, the stuff where our human eyes can't quite follow.
And her dress, it's not exactly off the rack, is it?
No. It's described as being made of an imperishable fabric, woven by her own hands, which means wisdom is self-sufficient. It doesn't need outside material. But, and this is key, the text notes that it's torn. It's been ripped by violent hands.
Who are the vandals who ripped philosophy's dress?
The text implies these are the various philosophical sects, the Stoics, the Epicureans, the Cynics. They each grabbed the piece of the truth, tore a strip off her dress, and then ran away thinking they had the whole garment.
That is such a killer metaphor. It's brilliant. So they have a fragment of truth like pleasure is good or endurance is good. But because they tore it away from the main garment, it's incomplete. They damaged the whole just to get their little part.
Exactly. And there's symbols on the dress, too. On the bottom hem, a Greek letter pi for practical philosophy. On the top hem, a theta for theoretical philosophy. And between them, there's a ladder.
A ladder, meaning you can't just jump to the big answers. You have to climb.
You have to climb. You start with practice, with ethics, how to behave, and you ascend to theory, to metaphysics, what is God?
So she walks in, she sees these muses of poesy encouraging Boethius to cry, and she just goes full bouncer mode.
Oh, she is furious. She calls them play-acting wantons. She says they are feeding him sweet poison. She basically says, you are killing him with this self-pity. You aren't curing the disease, you are just feeding the grief. And she kicks them out. She is there to heal him, not to comfort him in his wallowing.
And this begins the central metaphor of the whole book. She isn't just a teacher. She's a physician. He's the patient.
Yes. She sits on his bed, wipes his tear-clouded eyes with a piece of her robe, and he finally recognizes her. But he's mute. He can't even speak. She says he's suffering from lethargy.
Which, back in the 6th century, it doesn't just mean he needs a nap.
No. In this context, lethargy is a profound spiritual sickness. It means he has forgotten who he is. So she starts the diagnosis. She needs to see how deep the amnesia goes. She asks him a few test questions.
Like a concussion protocol. How many fingers am I holding up?
Exactly. Question 1. Do you believe that God rules the world or that it all happens by chance?
And Boethius says, yes, God rules. He hasn't lost his faith. He says, I know it's not random. God is in charge.
Right. So the foundation is still there. But then she asks, what is the end or the goal of the universe? And Boethius just stumbles. He says, I used to know, but I've forgotten.
That's a pretty big thing to forget, the meaning of everything.
A huge thing. Then she asks the final question, what is a man? And Boethius gives the textbook biology answer, a rational animal, but philosophy shakes her head. She says, I see, you have forgotten your true nature.
So the diagnosis is he knows God exists, but he doesn't know where the universe is going, and he doesn't even know what he himself is.
Exactly. And because he has forgotten the purpose of things, he thinks that bad men are powerful and happy. He thinks fortune is cruel because he doesn't understand the system. He's lost the map.
So she lays out a cure plan. She says she's going to start with gentle remedies, rhetoric and music, before she moves on to the stronger medicines of logic.
Okay, let's move to segment 2 then. The gentle remedy involves confronting the monster in the room, fortune.
Book 2 is really a masterclass in perspective shifting. Boethius is crying his eyes out because he lost his money, his title, his status. And philosophy basically looks at him and says, why are you surprised you knew who you were dealing with?
She introduces this powerful concept, the wheel of fortune.
Yes, she defines the very nature of fortune as mutability, change. That is her essence. She says if fortune stopped changing, she would cease to be fortune.
And she puts it on him. She tells Boethius, you chose to get on the wheel. You sought power. You sought status. You knew the rules of the game. The wheel turns. It brings you up and it brings you down. You cannot complain when it does exactly what it's designed to do.
It's like complaining that water is wet or that fire is hot. It's just what it is.
Precisely. And she uses this naked argument, which is so powerful. She reminds him, man is born naked. Everything Boethius had, the consulship, the applause, the riches, fortune, gave those to him. They belonged to her all along.
So she's just taking her stuff back. It's a repossession.
She hasn't taken anything that was truly Boethius's. She just reclaimed her loan. She says, why do you weep? I haven't stolen from you. I have just taken back what was mine.
And then philosophy does this dramatic role play where she speaks as fortune. And fortune defends herself beautifully. She says something like, the sea is permitted to be calm or rough, the sky to be bright or dark. Shall I alone be bound to constancy?
It's a powerful defense. She lists all these historical examples to show Boethius he isn't special. Croesus, the king of Lydia, who was incredibly rich, ended up on a burning pyre, only saved by a freak rainstorm. Perseus, a mighty king, ended up weeping in captivity. Fortune says, this is my game. I spin the wheel. If you don't like it, get off.
But then philosophy drops a bomb. And honestly, when I first read this, it sounded like a cope. It sounds like something you just tell yourself when you lose, she says. Bad fortune is better than good fortune.
It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? Thank you for burning my house down. I'm so much better off.
Yeah.
But hear her out. This is a rigorous logical argument, not just some pep talk.
Okay, walk me through the logic. How is winning the lottery worse than going to prison?
It all comes down to truth versus deception. Philosophy argues that good fortune is essentially a con artist. When fortune is smiling on you, when you have the money, the power, the entourage, she is fundamentally deceiving you.
Deceiving you how?
She wears a mask of happiness. She tricks you into believing that she is the source of security. She seduces you into thinking, if I just keep this status, if I just get one more promotion, I will be safe. She masks the fundamental fact that the world is unstable. She drugs you with a false sense of security.
So you're living a lie, basically. You think you're safe, but you're just on the high part of the wheel for a moment.
You are. But bad fortune. Bad fortune is honest. When she takes everything away, she rips that mask off. She shows you the world exactly as it is. Fragile, temporary, and often harsh.
She forces you to look at reality without any filters.
And in doing so, she gives you a specific, tangible gift. This is my favorite part of book 2. When Boethius fell from power, what happened to all those people who used to applaud him in the Senate?
They vanished. The text says his friends were struck dumb with fear. They totally ghosted him.
Right. The sycophants, the climbers, the fair weather friends, they scattered like roaches when the lights came on. But who stayed?
His wife, Rusticiana, and his father-in-law, Symmachus.
Exactly. And philosophy points to them and says, you are complaining about losing your gold, but bad fortune has just identified your true friends. Do you realize how much rich men would pay to know who truly loves them for them and not for their money?
That's a powerful point. You can't buy that knowledge. You can only get it by losing the ability to buy things.
Precisely. Philosophy asks him, at what price would you have bought the knowledge of who your real friends were? The price was his fortune. So in a very strict accounting sense, Boethius is richer now. He has lost the false goods of wealth, but he has gained the true good of knowing who loves him.
That is a tough pill to swallow when you're in a dungeon, but the logic holds up. So Boethius is starting to see that maybe the things he lost weren't the supreme good after all.
And that's the perfect transition. It leads us right into segment 3, the analysis of false happiness.
Okay, so in book 3, philosophy takes out the scalpel and she starts dissecting. She says all mortal creatures, whether they know it or not, want one thing: happiness, the supreme good.
She uses the drunkard analogy here, which I think is just brilliant.
I love it. Tell us about it.
She says men are like drunkards who know they have a home, and that home is true happiness, but they're too intoxicated to find the path back. So they stumble down all the wrong streets, banging on all the wrong doors, looking for their front door.
Let's walk down those wrong streets with them. The first one is a big one: wealth.
Right. We pursue wealth because we think it will give us independence, freedom from want. That's the dream, right? Financial independence. But philosophy points out a paradox. Does wealth really make you self-sufficient?
No. In fact, it actually creates new wants, new anxieties.
Exactly. Before you were rich, you didn't need a state-of-the-art security system. You didn't need bodyguards. You didn't need a team of lawyers to protect your assets. Now you have constant anxiety. You have to worry about losing what you have.
And fundamentally, money is only valuable when you get rid of it. You can't eat it.
Right. To use it, you have to transfer it. So it can't be the supreme good, because the supreme good should be something you possess fully, something that makes you whole in itself.
Okay, so not wealth. What about high office? Rank? Boethius was a consul. Surely that's a good thing.
Philosophy asks a very pointed question. Does the office give virtue to the man holding it? If a wicked man becomes consul, does he suddenly become a good person?
Definitely not. We have more than enough historical examples of that.
In fact, she argues the office acts like a spotlight. It just exposes his wickedness to more people. If a fool is just some guy in a village, only the village knows he's a fool. But if that fool is the emperor, the whole world knows.
She uses Nero as the prime example.
Nero had absolute power, absolute office. But he was despised. He was hateful. The office didn't make him happy or good. And she points out that context matters. A Roman consul is a big deal in Rome, but if you walk into a barbarian village, they don't care who you are. The value is local, it's not intrinsic.
All right, so not office. What about pure kingship? Power itself.
The promised goal of power is safety, but look at kings. Do they feel safe? Philosophy brings up the sword of Damocles. Kings fear their own guards. They fear their subjects. They fear poison in their wine.
She tells the story of Seneca and Papinianus.
Right, ministers to Roman emperors who tried to give their power back. Seneca tried to give all his wealth to Nero and just retire to save his life. Nero wouldn't let him. Power is a trap. You can't lay it down when you want to, and while you have it, you live in terror. That is not happiness.
Okay, next on list, glory. Fame.
This is a big one for a Roman like Boethius. Romans were obsessed with achieving immortality through fame. But philosophy just pulls the camera way, way back. She looks at the stars. She says the earth is a mere point in the vastness of the universe.
A tiny little dot. And even on that point, fame is so limited.
You're famous in Rome. Are you famous in Persia? Are you famous in the lands north of the Caucasus? No. And then there's time. Time erases everything. Even written records decay and are forgotten. Pinning your happiness on the tongues of future generations is foolish because those generations will eventually be silenced too.
Okay, last one, pleasure.
This one she dismisses pretty quickly. She says, pleasure drives men to be like beasts, and it always ends in one of two ways, repentance or illness. The sting of pleasure is that it leaves you either empty or in actual pain.
So we have this whole list of failures: wealth, power, office, fame, pleasure. They are all what she calls partial goods.
Yeah, it is the key phrase, partial. Human error separates what is naturally one. True happiness, the supreme good, must contain all these things simultaneously. It has to be self-sufficient, powerful, respected, renowned, and joyful all at once.
And if you just chase money, you might get rich, but you'll be anxious, so you're not powerful. And maybe people will despise you, so you're not respected. You get a fragment, but you lose the whole.
Exactly. Anything that lacks even one of these qualities ultimately lacks them all.
So where in the world do we find the whole package? That brings us, I think, to segment 4, the source of true good.
This is the real turning point of the book, The Ascent. Philosophy uses a very Platonic argument here, she says. We see imperfection in the world all the time. We see partial goods.
Right. We see goods that fade or break or disappoint us.
But logically, you can't have an imperfect version of something unless a perfect version exists somewhere as a standard. Imperfection is a privation, a falling away from that standard. You can't have a crooked line unless there is such a thing as a straight line to compare it to.
Okay, so if there are imperfect goods scattered around, there must be a perfect good.
And that perfect good must be the source of all the other things. That is God. God is not just good in an adjective sense. God is the supreme good. And since happiness is the supreme good, then by simple logic, God is happiness.
So to be truly happy is
to attain God. It's to participate in the divine nature. Philosophy makes a very bold statement here. She says, every happy man is a god. Not by nature, we don't become the creator, but by participation. She uses the analogy of a piece of iron becoming hot by participating in fire. In the same way, a man becomes happy by participating in God.
That is a beautiful, if very heady, concept. But then philosophy pivots to something she calls the unity argument. What's that about?
She argues that everything in the universe seeks one thing above all else: to exist. Plants grow roots to find water. Animals protect themselves from predators. Survival is the fundamental drive.
Sure, that makes sense.
But you can only exist if you have unity. If your body and soul separate, you die. If a society breaks apart into factions, it dissolves.
So existence depends on unity.
And all things seek unity. Therefore, all things are seeking the good, because unity and good are essentially the same in this system. The entire universe is naturally tending toward God.
Which sounds lovely and optimistic, but then Boethius, the prisoner, the guy who is about to be executed, throws a massive wrench in the gears.
He asks the question.
He asks the question. If God is all good and the entire universe tends toward good, why am I in this cell? Why do the evil men who accuse me get to prosper? Why does evil even exist?
The problem of evil. The great doubt. This is the question that haunts everyone, not just Boethius. If God is good and are powerful, why are the guys who framed Boethius sitting in the palace drinking wine while Boethius is rotting in here?
And philosophy's answer here is, it's wild. She hits him with a paradox that seems to fly in the face of reality, she says. The wicked are powerless.
It sounds absurd. Boethius is in chains, his enemies are free and in power. But you have to follow the logic. Power depends on two things: will and ability. You have to want something, and you have to be able to get it.
Okay. You need both the desire and the capacity to achieve it.
Now, everyone wills the good. Deep down, everyone wants to be happy. Even the wicked man, when he steals or kills, thinks it will make him happy.
Sure, he's just using a twisted method to get to what he thinks is a good outcome for him.
Right. He seeks the good, but he takes the wrong path. He seeks it through vice. But vice does not lead to the good. Vice leads to misery, anxiety, and spiritual decay. So the wicked man never gets what he truly wants. He is constantly chasing happiness and constantly missing it.
So he fails at his ultimate goal.
And one who fails to get what he wills is, by definition, impotent, powerless. The wicked are like men trying to walk on their hands. They're doing something unnatural and they'll never get where they want to go. In fact, philosophy goes even further. She says they don't even truly exist.
Whoa, that's metaphysical deletion. What does she mean by that?
To exist in her framework means to maintain your proper nature. A man's nature is to be rational and good. When a man becomes wicked, he loses that nature. He becomes, in her words, a moral beast.
She gets very specific with the animal comparison.
Oh yes, the violent man who steals is a wolf. The fraudulent, tricky man is a fox. The man consumed by anger is a lion. The dull, lazy man is an ass. They have lost their humanity. They are less than men.
So in the eyes of philosophy, the tyrant on the throne isn't a powerful man at all. He's a weak, frustrated animal who can't get what he really wants, which is happiness.
Precisely. And then she drops the second, even crazier paradox. The wicked are happier when punished.
This one is really hard for people to grasp. Nobody wants to go to jail.
It relies on a simple premise. Justice is good. If a wicked man commits a crime, he has a sickness in his soul. She calls it an ulcer. Punishment is the surgery. It's painful, yes, but it cures the ulcer. It restores the balance of justice in his soul.
So if he escapes punishment,
He is left with the open wound. He now has the evil of the original crime, plus the added evil of injustice, of getting away with it. He is carrying a much heavier burden of evil than the guy who gets caught and punished.
So the advocate twist she mentions is that lawyers shouldn't be trying to get criminals off the hook.
Right. She says if criminals really understood this, they wouldn't hire defense lawyers. They would hire accusers. They would demand to be punished so they could be healed. They would rush to the judge like a sick man rushes to a doctor.
That is a radical way to look at justice. It's a purely therapeutic view of punishment.
It completely changes how you see the success of the wicked. They aren't getting away with anything. They're just rotting from the inside out.
But Boethius still has a problem. He accepts all this about good and evil, but he's stuck on the mechanics of it all. If God is up there watching everything and God knows everything that's going to happen, do we actually have a choice in any of this?
And that takes us to segment 5. Providence, fate, and free will. This is arguably the most technically brilliant part of the whole book.
Okay, so first, we have to define the terms. Providence versus fate. I always thought they were basically synonyms.
Not in this system. Think of the circle analogy she uses. God is the center point of the circle. Unmoving, static, perfect. That is providence. It's the divine reason as it exists in God's mind. It sees everything at once outside of time.
And fate.
Fate is the rim of the wheel. It's the moving part. It's the unfolding of God's plan in time and space, the chain of cause and effect that we experience every day.
So providence is the blueprint. Fate is the construction crew actually building the thing day by day.
That's a great way to put it. And the closer you are to the center, to God, the more stable you are. You are living under providence. But the further out you go into worldly things, wealth, politics, the more you are on the rim. You are tossed around by fate.
So the spiritual goal is to move from the rim toward the center.
Correct. But now we hit the free will problem head on, Boethius says. If providence foresees that I will have oatmeal for breakfast tomorrow, and providence cannot be wrong, then I must have oatmeal. I can't choose eggs. If I can't choose, I have no free will. And if I have no free will, then rewarding me for being good or punishing me for being bad is completely unjust.
It makes us all just puppets on a string.
Philosophy's solution is profound. She says the error is in how we think about time and knowledge. We are judging God's knowledge by our human limitations.
We live in time. We experience a past, a present, and a future, one after the other.
Exactly. But God lives in eternity, and she defines eternity very, very specifically. It's not just perpetuity, which means living forever, day after day after day.
That's just a really, really long time.
Right. Eternity is the simultaneous and complete possession of all life. God doesn't have a yesterday or a tomorrow. He lives in an eternal present. Everything is now for God.
Give me an image for this. My brain is starting to hurt.
Okay, imagine a long, winding road with a parade on it. You are standing on the side of the road. You can only see the float that is right in front of you. You know the marching band just passed, that's the past, and you hear the fire truck is coming up, that's the future. But you can't see them both at the same time.
That's the human view of time.
Now imagine you are on a high mountain peak looking down at the entire road. You see the beginning of the parade, the middle, and the end all at once in a single glance.
I see the whole thing in one snapshot.
Exactly. Now here's the key question. Does your looking down from the mountain force the fire truck to drive?
No, I'm just watching it happen. The driver is still the one driving because he wants to.
That is the divine view. God is on the peak. He sees your birth, your breakfast tomorrow, and your death in one single glance. He doesn't foresee it like a fortune teller looking into a crystal ball of the future. He sees it as a present reality.
So because he sees it as a present act, he also sees me freely choosing the oatmeal.
Yes. His knowledge mirrors your free choice. It doesn't dictate it. Philosophy calls this conditional necessity. If you see a man sitting down, it is necessarily true that he is sitting down, but your seeing him didn't force him to sit. He sat because he chose to.
That is a workout for the brain. But it solves the problem. It saves free will, which means it saves the justice of rewards and punishments, and it saves prayer.
Absolutely. If everything were fixed by simple necessity, prayer would be useless. But because God sees our free actions in his eternal present, our prayers are part of that dynamic interaction. Hope is valid. The future is open from our perspective.
Incredible. So we've gone from a weeping prisoner in a cell to a man who understands the very architecture of the divine mind.
He has climbed the ladder from the pi on the hem of the dress to the theta at the top.
Now, before we wrap up, we like to take these high-minded concepts and have a little bit of fun with them. It is time for segment 6, thought experiments.
Here comes the disclaimer. The following segment contains outlandish but plausible philosophical thought experiments inspired by the work. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.
All right. Experiment 1, the Beast Mode Rehabilitation Center.
This comes directly from Book 4, the idea that the wicked lose their human nature and literally become beasts in a moral sense.
So imagine a future legal system. We don't put criminals in jail anymore. Instead, we reclassify them biologically based on their vice. You're a violent assault offender. Legally, you are now a wolf. You're a con artist who defrauds the elderly. You're a fox.
So the philosophical question is, how do we treat them? If Boethius is right, and they have lost their human nature, do they still have human rights?
Can we keep the wolf in a zoo? Can we hunt the fox if it's a danger to the livestock of society?
It forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. Is our humanity tied to our biology or to our moral capacity? If you act like an animal consistently, should society have the right to treat you like one? Boethius seems to suggest the man is already gone.
That is genuinely terrifying. Okay, experiment 2, the fortune-proof bunker.
This one is based on Book 2. Fortune can only take what is external to you.
So we build the ultimate minimalist life. You live in a virtual reality where you own nothing real. No house, no car, no expensive clothes. You live in a simple pod. But in your mind, in the VR world, you are a king with a vast empire.
Are you now immune to fortune?
I mean, fortune can't take away your digital castle because it doesn't really exist in the material world. She has no power there.
But philosophy would ask, is the wheel only in the material world? Or is the wheel located in your attachment to things? If the server crashes, or if you get bored of your digital kingdom, or if a hacker steals your digital crown, haven't you just moved the wheel into the cloud?
So you can't escape the wheel just by ditching physical stuff. As long as you crave the status, whether it's real or virtual, you're on the wheel.
Precisely. The bunker fails because the problem is in the soul, not in the furniture.
Okay, final one, experiment 3. The Eternal Now Courtroom.
Based on Book 5 and God's simultaneous view of time.
Imagine a human judge who has a specialized brain implant. It allows him to perceive time like God does. So when a defendant is brought before him, he sees the defendant committing the crime, but simultaneously, in the very same vision, he sees the defendant 10 years later weeping, fully repenting, and dedicating their life to charity.
How do you sentence that person?
Right. You are looking at a man stabbing someone, and at the same exact time, you're seeing him washing the feet of the poor.
It highlights the massive difference between human justice and divine justice. Human justice is sequential. We punish the act that happened in the past. But divine justice sees the whole trajectory of a soul at once.
Can you really punish the man who is stabbing someone if you can also see that he has already repented and made amends?
It breaks our entire legal system. It completely falls apart. And it shows why Boethius insists that ultimately we have to submit to the divine judgment because we just don't have the hardware to process that level of reality.
Mind officially blown. Okay, let's bring it home. Outro.
We have traveled a long way. From the library of the mind, which Boethius missed so much in his cell, all the way to the citadel of God.
This book really is the bridge that carried the best of Greek thought, Plato, Aristotle across the chaos of the Dark Ages and delivered it safely to the medieval world.
It gave the Middle Ages its vocabulary, the wheel of fortune, the definition of providence, the problem of evil, and above all, it gave them the comfort that the mind is its own fortress. You can strip a man of his consulship, you can lock him in a tower, you can even kill him, which they did, by the way. Boethius was executed shortly after writing this.
But they couldn't touch his mind.
They couldn't touch his true happiness. In the end, he won the argument.
So here is a final provocative thought for you to carry through your week.
We all have bad days. A car breaks down, you lose a client, you get sick. Boethius argues that every single piece of bad luck is actually a good thing, designed by a benevolent universe to either punish you, to cure your faults, or to test you, to strengthen your virtue.
So ask yourself, the next time you're having the worst day ever, is it possible that the only thing making it bad is your refusal to learn the lesson?
Are you fighting the medicine?
That's something to mull over. Thank you for joining Talk Treatises.
Until next time.